Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today I'm going to show you how to become a lie detector. We're going to be looking at the case of Chris Watts, a man who murdered his wife and children and is currently serving life in prison. Previously, I analyzed his interviews with local news. What we're going to be looking at today is him watching surveillance footage from his neighbor's house. Before we get started, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go.
My camera. Lay down.
Loading my stuff up in my coolers, my water jugs, my book bag, my computers.
So what we're looking at is police body cam footage. Chris Watts obviously standing in front of this police officer, and to the right of the screen is his neighbor showing his surveillance footage.
My book bag, my computers, some of the tools that I had from the toolbox. I knew I was going to have to do some pumping unit rubbers today.
Liars like to have props, so looking at his phone is something he'll do in order to keep himself focused, because it's much easier to stay focused looking at a phone than talking directly to a police officer if you have things to hide.
That's why I was out so far.
Is this on continually
Yep.
recording?
Yep. Well,
It's not, is it motion or is it,
event.
okay.
All right, so when the police officer was talking, you'll see Chris Watts looked up at him. Watch his mouth.
Continually.
All right, so licking his lips. Oftentimes we do this when we have a lot of adrenaline coursing through our veins, sometimes from excitement, sometimes from fear. But it's not the only reason we lick our lips, but oftentimes when you catch people doing that, particularly in this kind of context, like when a policeman's starting to talk, you'll recognize that is when the adrenaline is starting to pump.
Continually
Yep.
recording?
Yep. Well,
It's not, is it
any
motion or is it,
event.
okay, so it's motion.
I usually park out there on the side. I just want to get everything back in.
Now look how stiff his posture is. His arms are pretty stiff. Even when he pointed at the TV, his arm looked a little bit uncomfortable. He's just sort of swinging it up. He is very stiff, and we oftentimes do that when we're trying to hide. We've got freeze, flight, and then fight. We've got adrenaline coursing through our veins. We go through those three stages. Right now, he's in the freeze stage. Having a policeman standing this close to him is making him want to freeze a little bit. So he is trying to move less. Watch this again.
I usually park out there on the side. I just want to get everything back in. Be easier, so lugging everything out there, all the tools I had to bring in.
Now watch this. He was trying not to look at the police officer because I think it probably makes him uncomfortable. And he let out a brief sigh when he looked at the door. He wants to get out of here. And when our body gets into that freeze, flight, fight mode, the flight is very strong. So when he looks at the front door, he really does feel relief wanting to leave the situation. But look how strongly he tries not to look at the police officer.
Everything out there, all the tools I had to bring in.
All right, so now he's starting to get more uncomfortable. Now, if you're laying down and you put your hands behind your head, it's a way of comforting ourselves. We feel comfortable in that situation. If you're standing and doing it, think about it like this. If you do this, it's very hard to breathe through your chest when you put your hands on your head like that. What it forces our body to do, it forces us to breathe with our diaphragm. And when you breathe with your diaphragm, it makes you feel more calm. So sometimes people do this as a way to soothe themselves, to feel calmer. You don't realize you're doing that necessarily. You don't think about it in that sense. But right now, watching these videos, not necessarily knowing everything that's going to be on them, having a police officer standing this close to him, he's getting very uncomfortable. I think there is a lot of adrenaline pumping through his body right now. Now, if you'll notice, he's biting his lip. We oftentimes do things around the mouth to make ourselves feel calmer. The lips have lots and lots of nerves. So oftentimes when people are lying, if they're starting to feel uncomfortable, they bite on their lip, they chew the inside of their mouth. They do a lot of things around the mouth. Even before you're born, you're touching your mouth. This is an innately human experience and something that most people do. So keep an eye on when people are doing things around their mouth, because it can suggest not necessarily deception, but it suggests discomfort. And in this situation, his discomfort is because of his deception. Watch this again. So as he's looking here, he can't even take both hands off his head because he's so anxious, fantasizing about all the things they might see on this TV right here. And look how much heavier he's breathing. Once again, when adrenaline pumps through your veins, your heart beats faster, it uses up more oxygen, so it requires you breathe harder. Right now, I think he's trying really hard to get his breathing under control.
What else can I do with this?
My detective just showed up.
All right, so you can see his lips are shrinking away. Oftentimes people do this when they don't want to say something. I talked about how the mouth can make us feel calmer, but shrinking away to this degree is more associated with not wanting to say something. Let's watch this again.
My detective just showed up. So he'll probably want to talk to you. He'd probably, like I said, he might have you call at the bank and see if there's any kind of activity.
Because if there was any sort of action out
I know
there,
his camera's
I
like,
would have got it.
like
Right.
we had issues the other week when people were stealing stuff out of like garages and stuff like that. And
All right, now see, he's trying to guide them away from the evidence. Look how much more animated he is pointing at the door. He's trying to say, don't focus over here. There's people doing things over here. Let's get out here. In essence, that's what he's trying to do with his body language, is to get them outside and to not focus on this. Watch how animated he is relative to how much animation he showed so far.
other week when people were stealing stuff out of like garages and stuff like that. And I had parked my truck
I
over
had
here.
to park right here.
Yeah. So someone,
see if
I could
anything
see where
happened.
someone tried to jim me with a flathead screwdriver over there, and it was just like, what security system do you have?
He's trying really hard to process all this information and to figure out what all he needs to know and be aware of.
You can see this car starting to drive down the street.
That ain't one.
Oh, look,
See what I'm saying? It picks up all the way down there.
that's cool.
He's next door.
Here we go.
See, once again, want me to go? He wants to get out of there. He wants everybody to leave. He wants people to ignore what's going on here.
Talking about dispatcher.
All right, and now he's trying to appear calm. He's putting his hands on his hips, trying to show that he is dominant, because that's what we do. We take up more space that makes us feel dominant. So right now, it's a fake sense of calm, a fake sense of confidence. And so he's trying to put his hands on his hips to appear confident.
It'll be code 4.
Because, yeah, we can pick up cars coming this way. I get anything coming this way and making this turn. So, and usually at night I pick up the cars pulling a U-turn. So, unless they pulled right here,
Yeah.
but I would have caught her walking out.
All right, and you can see he's trying to calm himself down. He's rubbing on his chest. Once again, he's doing so many things to soothe himself right now. Watch this again.
They pulled right here,
Yeah.
but I would have caught her walking out. Diesel.
Here's good.
But yeah, I thought nothing.
So many things to soothe himself. Petting the dog, rubbing his lips together, moving his hands around. He can't seem to stand still.
Nothing for the rest of the day.
No, that's it.
All right, and if you just saw right there, we call this a tongue jut.
Nothing for the rest of the day.
No, that's it.
Okay. Now, sometimes, now that may be him wetting his lips. It's also possible that that's a tongue jut. And sometimes we do that when we think we've gotten away with something. So now they're not showing anymore with the cameras. So for this very brief moment, he may think, I got away with it. They didn't show me. There was nothing on there that would be indicative or evidence against me.
She's pregnant as well.
How far along?
14, 15 weeks.
And you'll notice, watch his eyes right here.
How far along?
14, 15 weeks.
All right, you saw him close his eyes. 15 weeks.
She's pregnant as well.
How far along?
14, 15 weeks.
All right, so one thing that people do is we close our eyes, we think about things that we don't like. So the question is, does he not like the idea of that she was pregnant? That's what I would hypothesize, but there could be other alternative explanations. There he is facing the door again, because that's the direction he wants to head.
That's why her friend said it was low blood sugar.
All right, and he's pulling his prop out again. Now, I don't know if somebody texted him, but once again, rather than focusing on this and trying to find the people who have taken her, which obviously we know nobody did, but the idea is that he's not good at faking this and focusing on the things he should focus on. He's just trying to keep himself distracted, probably so he won't look as anxious as he feels. His body is almost physically forcing him to try not to get out of there. He so desperately wants people to follow him. Because think about this. When we do certain behaviors, we assume other people will follow along. Sometimes we smile because other people will reflect that smile. There's part of him unconsciously that wants to get out of there so badly, he keeps heading for the door.
She dropped her off at 1 in the morning, right?
She's done my doorbell said 1:48. She came in.
All right, watch his eyes right here.
At 1 in the morning, right?
She's done my doorbell said 1:48. She came in.
All right, you see how fast he was blinking? Oftentimes we do that when we start feeling really stressed. So something about giving specific evidence, talking about specific things is going to make him feel more stressed because so much is based on him being able to be consistent with his lies. All right, as they're getting into looking at more evidence, you'll see how he just grabbed himself. Now, sometimes crossing your arms can just be a way to be comfortable. It's not that unusual that people cross their arms. And what we look for is changes in behavior. So he didn't have his arms crossed, so why is he crossing them now? Now, another thing that's important about how he's crossing his arms, though, is he's kind of gripping his elbows. That tends to be a more tense way to cross your arms than calmly resting your arms on yourself. This looks more like he's holding himself rather than just gently crossing his arms for comfort. Watch this again. He's basically bracing himself.
I didn't pick her up going into the house, though.
It didn't. And I usually pick him up when he comes walking through here.
Now you see, look at his middle finger. It's gripping onto the back of his tricep.
I pick him up. So it doesn't show her walking into the house.
So he's trying really hard to hold on. And that matters for what we're going to see in just a second. And you obviously see the swaying back and forth.
Or she would have walked by when we just saw him.
Now watch this. Now his head nod. Oftentimes we tend to nod in concert with something that's being asked or being said, or if we respond to a question, we nod right away, we shake our head right away. His is delayed because he's calculating, what do I say and do in this situation? This situation is making him extremely nervous. So watch this when his neighbor talks to him versus the head nod.
Or she would have walked by when we just saw him. They see all these people coming in and they're like, what is going on? Yeah.
All right, now that was probably the most telling thing we've seen so far. If you noticed him look at his hand, we're going to watch that again. It tells us that the reason he was gripping his tricep or gripping his elbow is because he's trying to stop his hand from shaking because there's so much adrenaline. Watch this. He checks his hand to see if it's shaking.
People coming in and they're like, what is going on? Yeah.
So he looks down, not visibly shaking, I presume, put his hand back. I mean, he's aware that he's on body cam right now, so he's probably thinking of a million things. I mean, his lips were tucked away literally while he was talking. He is so anxious right now, and his heart is probably beating so heavily. The idea that he had to look at his hand to see if it was shaking really speaks to the intensity of what he's feeling.
Headlights, it picks up the headlights
Oh, yeah.
automatically.
And my Vivint said that at 5:27, my garage door was left open.
All right, so he just talked about some times that they had. It didn't line up with his, so his comfort level is going up a little bit. He's pulling his phone out, keeping himself distracted.
But that could have been the sensor as well. It says it was shut during the day, but I think when Nikki's son, he made
See, once again, he's a lot more animated when facing his arm towards the door. He is unconsciously trying to get people out of there.
try to move the door around, maybe when they were trying to get in the garage door, and it probably broke the laser there. That's because my alarm started going off.
Well, I know he said the front door he tried going in, but he had the lock up.
That's for
So
the
that
kids,
set
so
it
they
off,
don't get out.
right?
And our remote on the outside doesn't work anymore. It got wet and the whole radio on the back.
So yeah, that was it.
Okay. All right, appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, now he's wanting to get out of there fast.
Thanks.
Hopefully something comes up, dude.
So it's obviously striking that they're trying to find the people that have his wife and children, and he is just trying to survive the situation. No interest in possibly finding who the culprits are. We know how this ends, so Obviously, we know that he doesn't care about that, but he's showing it. This is not normal behavior for somebody in this situation. There's a wide range of behavior that could be considered normal, but his behavior consistently shows somebody who is trying to deceive. Hopefully this video is helping you better learn how to detect these kinds of patterns. I'm going to continue to do videos about how to become a lie detector. If you have any ideas or any videos you want me to use for examples, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I just want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.